All right. There it is, recording in progress. So for any first-time viewers at home, we'll get you caught up to speed if this is the first video that you're clicking into from the city's YouTube platform. But know that this is the third subcommittee meeting from the Park and Recreation Subcommittee. And we're going over goals and objectives for the upcoming citywide comprehensive plan. Before we get going, I'd like to review, go over everyone's names, do a quick brief introduction. My name is Patrick Menton. I'm the facility director with Park and Recreation. And to my right,
I'm Jeff Heima, and citizen of Winona, and I'm running for council on Ward 2.
And I'm Alicia. I'm the outdoor recreation coordinator for the city.
Eric.
Hello, my name is Eric Barnard. I teach at Winona State in our physical education sports science department, a member of the Rec Alliance, and own a local guiding business as well.
Thanks, Eric. Zach.
Hi, I'm Zach Craig. I am a teacher in Winona, and I also run Anthem Skate Park and Board Shop in Winona.
Thanks, Zach. Tricia.
I'm Tricia Carr. I teach at Winona State in the psychology program, particularly focused on health and development. As a citizen, I'm actively engaged in outdoor activities.
All right, thanks, Tricia. All right, today's agenda, I think, I don't know if it's shared or not, but that's all right. We're going to review the purpose of the committee. Our plan is to discuss the Park and Recreation Comprehensive Plan. In particular, we're going to review the Section 2 goals and objectives, number 5 through 8. And then we'll look for final comments and then talk next steps. It is possible this may be our final meeting. If we can get through everything, this will be it. Otherwise, if we need to add one more on, we can do that as well. For those at home just joining in with us, I wanted to give a quick update on this overall comprehensive plan. So this is an update that is a working draft of the city's vision and values to year 2045. And the vision of the comprehensive plan and the vision of the city is that Winona is a vibrant, inclusive river city where we are connected with each other and our beautiful environment. And we lead with entrepreneurial spirit and creativity. And the core values that are set up are livability and well-being in Winona, the environment and recreation, entrepreneurship and economy, and learning and culture. So with this, city planners have been working with approximately 100 people on 12 different subcommittees on the goals and objectives and strategies to implement within the citywide plan. So for today, our committees, the Parks and Recreation Committee, we're going to focus again on goals 5 through 8, pages 34 through 37 on the comp plan. And following that, we'll go through some ending comments and next steps. But for now, if you could please go to page 34 on the comp plan, and we'll jump in with goal 5. So what I'll do is I'll read through the goal and then we can comb through each one and we'll get the committee's input. Do we like it? Does it stay the same? Does it need to be changed? And then we'll collect comments. So goal number 5 is to improve the quality of experiences within the parks and recreation system as facilities are scheduled for improvement. So if you can start looking at 5.1 through 5.10 and just feel free to jump in on what clicks, what doesn't, what opportunities are there.
I can jump in on a couple of them. We can do kind of free form.
Yeah,
So,
that was free fly.
so on 5.1, I think, that makes perfect sense, to have, obviously, to go into it with mini master plans as to what you want for areas. Before they're added, I think it helps if, I guess, defining how big is mini? You know, for example, and I've talked to you about this, Patrick, so it's nothing new, but you know, across from my house, you've got at the corner of Dakota and Lake. You know, I see a master plan that would incorporate kind of that whole thing from the Sioux, you know, parking lot over to the Dakota parking lot, the boat landing, the baseball field, the little shelter that's there, the fishing dock. You know, I would kind of consider that whole one use area. And so it would make sense, you know, to kind of try to manage it as, you know, that type of thing. And is that what is that kind of what that envisions when it says mini master plans? Is there?
Yeah, but, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, would you like to change this objective to be more specific, like what is a mini master plan?
I think there just needs some kind of definition, because I could see how you could, for example, you know, across the street, they removed some playground equipment because it was a million years old and didn't meet approval anymore. So I could see, you know, okay, we're gonna have a mini master plan just for that, but it would seem to make sense to incorporate it into that area, because you got a lot of things going on there that feed into each other, and people interact with all the different parts at once. When you see, you know, oftentimes when you see families and stuff go there. So I guess that's just kind of my question as to, you know, how many is many? For lack of better
So you would
words.
like 5.1 to further define what mini master plan?
Yeah, I think just so that it has flexibility. So if, you know, mini is, you know, if something small is appropriate, but if something, you know, something that we can expand, you know, to make what's logical for a given area. You know, I'm not trying to dictate anything at all, but it just seems that we're gonna have some things that are pretty small, and we're gonna have some things that, you know, may be a little bit more substantial because it's just more of an incorporated area. So whatever builds that kind of flexibility into that.
Yeah,
I
I
think,
think maybe just keeping it vague, just saying the way it is now, mini master plan, and not defining it
that's
is
fine.
opening up to.
You can define it as you want,
As
move forward.
we need it per park.
That sounds perfect.
Well, I like that concept of having a standard on, you know, does a mini master, does it have to incorporate, you know, all these different amenities that you mentioned, the parks and the ball field and all that, does a mini master plan, is it about a space area, or is it about a number of amenities?
Like space within a park
Mhm.
and not the whole park.
When Eric, you were there from the beginning with the Sugarloaf plan, and internally, we always called that a mini master plan as well.
Okay,
The space was large,
That's
the
good.
focus was narrow.
Yeah, yeah.
that makes sense.
Thanks, Jeff.
So, focus.
And then just going through some of my notes, I think on 5.3, it's just a kind of a kudos to the. I think one of the things down by the lake that I see used all the time are those round tables that we, you know, with a seat for, that with a cement circle. And you've got those at the end of Sioux, you've got them now at the end of the bicycle path down by the high school. And those are really well used, you know, it's especially during COVID because they're spaced out well. And so, you know, somebody's on those every single day. So I think those types of things are great. And I like the, you know.
So you would like to reaffirm?
Yeah, just kind of
5.3?
reaffirming 5.3, that makes good sense, you know, and resurfaced hard courts. One of the things that we talked about is, you know, the possibility of adapting some of the tennis courts to pickleball courts. Just because that just seems to be such a widely popular thing right now, and to my knowledge, in town, and you know, correct my ignorance if I'm wrong, but there is no outside pickleball courts in town.
Not fully dedicated. We've got lines painted on the 4 band shell courts in town. And then within city limits, not Valley and Valley Oaks have painted lines. And then what they do is they take the tennis net and there's a center strap, and then you lower it down. to make
Okay,
it pickleball height, not ideal for pickleball.
Okay.
And then recently, the neighbors on the east end repainted the Sobieski courts with pickleball lines. And then we did another net lowering.
okay, Cool.
but yeah, dedicated pickleball is something.
It
that
just
keeps
seems to be
coming
the
up.
thing these days.
Yep.
So just to double check, there's nothing you want to change about
No,
5.3?
just kind of a reaffirm.
Reaffirm it,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep, that's good to have. Eric, put you on the spot here. 5.7 is something that I hear you talking about often, which is the placemaking, signage, trailhead kiosks, and then the art that gets placed in it. Do you have anything that you would add or change to 5.7 in relation to signage or art at trailheads?
No, just getting signage and art at the trailheads would be awesome. Yeah, better wayfinding for people, enhance the experience, which I know is in the pipeline. I wonder too, like just being part of the last comp plan as well, just a couple of them, 5.5, 5.6 have the word evaluate in that. I was just wondering, like, did this firm or has the city done evaluations that will be incorporated into the new comp plan, as whether it's a note underneath these, which were like, evaluating parks for social interaction opportunities, potential for consolidation.
Well, I definitely recommend.
Sorry, what was that?
We're getting, somebody's in the background.
It might have been background feedback.
But I mean, I would just, when I look at that would be kind of helpful too, as far as like, if we're considering, at least those 2 points, 5.5 and 5.6, have amenities been evaluated? I would assume like there's maintenance evaluations, and you all have criteria as far as which parks have priorities for whether it's a hard court being resurfaced, or is there any documents that we all can see? Or this is the last meeting, but are there documents where we can see the evaluation of the parks, or ranking of parks, or priorities, anything like that that's been done since 2018?
Right, because that seems to play into like the later numbers as well, where it's encourage participation of neighborhoods, community groups, looking for, novel locations to avoid cookie cutter parks. It seems like that would be dependent on previous evaluations. Is that kind of what you're saying too, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, just to have something to go off of then, rather, because these were what were the goals or points from 2018, and just to see like, where are we at now as we're looking at changing language on these, or can we get rid of some of them because we know that, we've enhanced the user experiences, and so we feel like, like we've done a great job of incorporating garbage cans or, signage or any of those other points. I feel like it would give us a good direction or barometer of where we're at right now, and maybe do these have different priority levels, or can they be consolidated or removed? Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, to answer your question real short, Eric, we don't have a process for evaluating our parks right now. So I think that's a good point to address that.
So that might be, with this topic being improving the quality of experiences, as facilities are scheduled to be improved with all of the funding and legacy funding, and the reason that you have to do a comp plan is for future funding, right? Every 4 or 5 years, whatever the timeline is. That might be one to maybe add. I know it's more work. You guys have a ton to do. Maybe that could be outsourced to somebody like Engage Winona or something. Maybe if there's a third party that already specializes in public space evaluation. I mean, I know there's places like Headwater Economics that does, you know, user info. They do measurement of like park user data and all of that. But that might be a good one to put in there potentially, of like, how do we know that we're meeting these goals, besides, you know, subcommittees for you all as staff and those in between years of maybe giving you check boxes or funding priorities potentially. But yeah, some kind of data to see that the comp plan is working in these different areas and it's not working in this area, so that needs a higher priority for 5 years from now, or just putting that out there as a potential.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Eric.
I would agree with that, just in terms of an evaluation standpoint, to think about how we are making improvements, to what degree we're successful for then future plans. But otherwise, if we want to move on to another point, I just had a question.
Shoot.
Perfect. I didn't want to, stop the thoughts there.
No, that's great.
But 5.5, could you speak to the potential for consolidation and what you think that is suggesting?
I think this could be something as a visual. You could look at the band shell, for example. To many people, the band shell is 8 concerts every Wednesday night. But to other people, it's a space where student groups will meet. It's a space where we have a variety of different types of concerts, from rap concerts to folk music. And then what I think this is getting at is this potential for increased social interaction. So the band shell is really designed for a band, the shape of it, to project the music. But is this an area that could be redesigned in a way to kind of like bring in some of the highlights from some of the other numbers here, to be a more flexible space that increases social interaction? So it's not just people from the band going there. And, to create, as the goal goes on, these flexible multi-use spaces where applicable. So for one group of people, it means one thing. For another group, it could mean something completely different, but it's used as a tool to generate more interaction among community members.
Okay, and I like that idea. I think what threw me was the word consolidation. I
Yeah.
was interpreting that as like to shrink down. And just wasn't sure if that might be the phrasing, but maybe that's just how I interpreted it. I don't know if anybody else caught that and kind of wondered about it.
No, I would agree too, Tricia. I had a note that, one of the things that I think places like the band shell and the Lions, playground area are phenomenal, but they're destination places for most of Winona. They're not neighborhood stuff. And I think one of the things that needs to be incorporated in here is, I think you need more things that people can walk to, with their strollers, or, the kids can do the Strider bike, walk down to it and fool around. So, so I wouldn't want to see things consolidated into destination parks only at the cost of, I think you need a balance, between the two. And the regional ones can be pretty simple. It doesn't need to be extravagant, but it just needs to be where people are, so people can walk to them, or, take their family to them without having to get in a car.
So might the word, maybe the potential for engagement, or I don't know, collaboration, or something other than consolidation. I don't know. That word just kind of seems to have a different meaning. But again, maybe it's just my interpretation.
Yeah, I read it the same way, Tricia. It seems to take away from rather than build to.
And maybe that's just semantics.
Yeah. Yep, that's good. Thank you for that.
You want something like evaluate parks and social interaction opportunities and location appropriate. Flexible, multi-use spaces where applicable, something where you're offsetting. I'm just spitballing here, but something that leaves the door open.
Yeah. Yeah. How about the rest of goal 5? Anything else jump out at anyone?
The only thing that under I'm not sure, it's either going to be probably 5.8, but I'm wondering if there needs to be something in here that discusses cost. In the places that where fees are charged, whether it's at rentals of kayaks, canoes, and what have you. There's a fee charged for that. To use the skate park at Anthem, there's a fee charged for that. I don't know if there's other places, that we're charging fees as well, but those are the two that kind of come to mind. I think there's got to be something that it's evaluated, based on the user group's ability to pay. Are we in line? Are we appropriate? So, I think, the places that are free, obviously not an issue, but the places where we're charging, I think you got to have a mechanism to take a look at, is that appropriate? For the for the user group that's using it, because if it's kids, they don't have a whole lot of money. If it's adults, yeah, fine. If it's a family type of thing where you pay a blank, or one fee and you can use it as much as you want all summer. That's, I think it's just something in there that deals with cost and then whether it's appropriate or not.
So evaluate all city facilities that have a fee to them.
And as to cost appropriate for the user group.
It seemed like there was some mention of cost in one of these goals, but I'm not sure which one. Maybe down to like 8 or something.
Any final thoughts on goal 5?
Last one I had was 5.9, which I think is great. Incorporate public art within the system.
Mhm.
I think it's important that you have buy-in from the majority user groups. Where I'm coming from is when I was out in Oregon last week, there was a skate park right by my buddy's place. Well designed, very nice, about same size town as this. But the artwork that had been incorporated into it was by local artists who were associated with the skate park. And I thought that was a neat concept because then they got buy-in and you're less likely to get graffiti over the top of stuff that, you may, have somebody that's unassociated with it put down, but it's not their thing. So it ends up, then you get that battle over graffiti. So, if you incorporate it from the get-go, I think, and get the buy-in from the user group, and that particular, when appropriate, then, within appropriate parameters, of course, it makes sense. So I don't know how you take all of that, make it sound intelligent, Patrick, but I leave that to you.
No, I get what you're saying, and
Yeah,
and Zach could,
Yeah.
Zach, I'm sure you've got students that are artists that you would have do work at the skate park, but might not be the same type of art you would put on a side of the building downtown, possibly. I think that's what Jeff was talking to.
So you
Right, we
would,
ran into some issues when we were doing the mural on the building here, because we got a grant from the Winona Fine Arts Commission to do that. And they had to define what local was, because the artist who did that was from La Crosse. And they were having debate of, is La Crosse local enough? And ultimately they determined that Winona is such a small town that local encompassed surrounding areas as well.
Mhm.
So I'd be a little bit worried as well about having local be interpreted as only from Winona, because I really do think that my opinion is that local is Winona and the surrounding area. Southeast Minnesota feels very local to me.
Yeah, I would agree, Zach. I'm not too concerned about, I'm not as concerned about the local aspect of it as user group. Those that use the particular thing should have a buy-in to the art
Yeah,
that's gonna decorate it, it was more my point. It's not, I'm not
yeah,
trying.
no, yeah, I completely agree with that as well.
All right,
Yeah, and I can attest to that point of, there's graffiti in the back of our building where there is no mural, and we've had zero problems with graffiti on the front of the building where there is the mural.
Yeah, I think that speaks to it.
So you would like to reword 5.9 to say something along the lines like incorporate public art within the system. Giving,
Incorporating insights from local user groups,
yeah,
something to that effect.
while giving, yeah, local user groups.
Buy-in where appropriate, something like that.
I feel like that was mentioned in another goal, though.
Was it? Okay.
I guess
Yeah.
at 5.8, it says encourage participation by neighborhoods, community groups, and local artists in the planning for and development of park and recreation facilities. So 5.8 kind of covers that already.
Okay.
all right. Comments, goal 5. All right, let's move on. Goal 6, which is to maintain and collect data about the park and recreation system to ensure assets are well managed and decisions well informed.
In number 6.2, it talks about, allocate park improvements into long-term capital improvement plan and use a maintenance and replacement schedule to keep parks facilities up to date. Is there maybe I'm missing it in one of the later ones, but is there something that speaks to going beyond maintenance and replacement and to expansion? New things?
Yeah,
Isn't that what the capital improvement plan is? It's long-term. Is that what you're asking?
Well, this one seems to, 6.2, I think is great, but it speaks to maintaining and replacing.
Mhm.
And I think there are certain things where we could use some expansion or some new things. So that wouldn't fall under maintenance or replacement. It would be a different thing. I don't know what you want to call it, but something that just kind of, because I think, what I would like to see, what I would hope, in a capital budget is that, you've got you're recognizing, as they talked about at the council meeting last night, the depreciation. So you've got your maintenance. This is what needs to be spent just to maintain the status quo. And, replace things as is appropriate. But I think it's fair to have, in the capital budget, monies allowed for dreaming a little bit and expanding and saying, hey, we've never had a thing there, but there is an appropriate place to put things. And I think you've got to have something, especially when it comes to funding. You've got to have, ideally, you have a mechanism that covers it so that you're not always going back and asking anytime somebody dreams up a new idea. So it's just kind of part of the process that you've got it built in, that you're gonna have some funding for new things too. Or the enhancement of existing things beyond what they are.
Yeah, so going back to the last goal, goal 5, we have incorporate new playground equipment, resurface hard courts and more. park benches, picnic tables were applicable.
True.
So would you like an objective in goal 6 that
Well, I guess
also mentions that we should,
I'm just thinking that that's a place where you're talking, I mean, this is talking about the 5, you're talking about the ideas.
Yeah,
In 6,
Yeah.
you're starting to talk about the money. And if we're gonna talk about the money, somewhere there in the money, discussion, there needs to be the potential for the expansion. And if it's there, it's there. I'm not trying to belabor the point.
yeah, so goal 7 is about funding too.
and goal 6 focuses on collecting the data.
Yeah, this is
that we
about
can use to-
maintaining
Okay.
data. So goal 7 talks about funding.
Okay,
So 5 has adding in future expansions, possibilities, like the dreaming.
okay.
6.
Yeah, I'm not sure how 6.2 even fits under goal 6.
Say that again, Eric?
I'm not sure how 6.2 even fits under goal 6. It does look more like a goal 7 sort of a thing. Allocate park improvements in the long-term capital improvement plan and use maintenance and replacement schedule. I mean, maybe data as far as maintenance and replacement schedule. But like, yeah, I don't know, it's a tough call. But yeah, if 7's dealing with funding,
Okay, maybe that's more
Yeah.
appropriate then.
and so like, but working with other city departments and equity and identifying data needed to make informed decisions. I don't know, it just are there mechanisms for these already, or none of that exists and you're just planning to do that now, or?
Yeah, some of this, we made improvements since this came out in 2018. Some of it is ongoing. Always room for improvement. I mean, there's data collection going on. One place I think of right now is with the trail counters that Alicia has up in the woods. Trail counters helping us make better decisions on where people go and how many people are using it. There's always been a great culture that I've seen in my time here with the city as far as working with other departments, as far as gaining support from other departments.
Are they working with you guys too?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking, like, I don't know, like the engagement plan, is that one of these that we've worked on here, or is that a separate engagement plan? It's like referenced by 6.8.
Yeah, I'm not sure what 6 is referencing exactly with an engagement plan.
And so like in relative to that, 6.7 is include engagement options or a toolbox for engagement strategies. Again, is that like, for the public to engage, to make recommendations or, suggestions, or?
Yeah, I don't think any of us were around when this was made, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was meant for citizens to be able to engage with the park rec department.
Okay, well, could we make it maybe more clear so that the next, group that wasn't here at the time of whatever,
Yeah,
that it's
actually,
very clear to them.
we
Public-
read this over as staff before this meeting and we had the same questions. We're like, what does this mean? So, yeah,
So it should say a public engagement.
it should say public, yeah.
If it said public engagement, especially if it's in relation to park planning or upgrades. And then that engagement plan then would be, for example, if we're going into Tillman Park and there's X amount of dollars, the engagement plan would be to connect with the community, define a radius of, how far, who lives in the neighborhood, how do you connect with them? How many neighborhood meetings are appropriate? How do you collect the information from them? I think that's probably what it's getting at as far as the public engagement plan goes.
Okay, and so is there some like engagement plan in existence to that effect then?
I would say it's more of a strategy to.
Okay.
Okay, with-
So is part of this, like, is this where we maybe want to flesh out that strategy, or where does that get you know, codified so that we know if we're doing that and if we're succeeding at it? Because that would be something relative to maintaining and collecting data about Parks and Rec being well managed and decisions well informed.
Yeah, so we need to spend a little bit of time fleshing out what the engagement.
So I would, I would just throw in there, I was on the committee for this plan in 2018. And I remember actually talking about this. And one of the goals of this coming up was having things like evaluating actual data as far as like targeted return on investment, what you would see as far as economic impacts to the community. One of the things at that time, I think, was kind of just happening was discussion of the East Rec Center and Friendship Center investment that was just beginning at that time. And I think some of the folks on the committee were also just saying, like, what are the numbers on it? Like, are we making informed decisions about investing in parks just because they look good and sound good? Or, and I don't mean this about East Rec, but like just in general, do we have a vocal minority that's pushing for something, but we're not using data to make decisions on things? I think that was one for a couple of those points where those came from, as far as like identifying the data needed in 6.6 to make informed decisions and methods for collecting that data. And those were discussions about, is that something that city staff has the ability to use those methods for collecting data, or is that something where like an organization, again, like Headwater Economics comes in and does an evaluation? The engagement part too was right in line with that, of like, how do you get appropriate sample sizes so that we actually know that the community really wants something versus like a vocal minority wanting something. Again, I'm not saying any one project, but just in general for that happening. So that's at least what I remember talking about this as a steering committee for this comp plan, was just trying to make informed decisions and being objective about decisions versus emotional about them. And in that, I think that's what I remember about that, just to throw that out there.
And so then I don't know, how do we maintain that thread, you know, in future generations of planning? How do we ensure that when we go back to reference these things, that we know that that was the intent? I mean, I don't know, I'm just thinking maybe we should include that it's the toolboxes for public engagement and
Yeah, so it does sound like the consensus from the group is we should reword 6.7 and 6.8 probably to be more clear on what those mean, so. Yeah, this city staff will reword those appropriately.
Alicia, in addition to that, and again, going off of what Eric Barnard had said, it might make sense for 6.6 to just simply make it identify objective data needed to make informed decisions. And again, just kind of thinking more about the difference between what's objective versus what's subjective, so we don't have this conversation again in the future, possibly.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tricia. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, 6.6.
Any more goal 6?
should there be a requirement in the future that changes to Parks and Rec areas be actually supported by the data? I mean, so it says develop data collection and participation and all of these, right? But I don't know, have we actually said that the decisions should be made through use of the data? Identify data to make informed decisions, yeah, but like,
Right.
how, what's the mechanism for making that happen? I don't know, am I being silly, or I just, I think that one of the.
That's not silly.
sometimes it's emotional,
Yeah,
like, we want to do this, and so how do we justify it? But like how do we confirm that this is what the data actually supports? And how do we then, make that data available to the public to see that, oh, this is actually a good choice? Because that type of thing is what I'm always finding myself as a member of the public just puzzled at, like, why in hell did they do X, Y, or Z?
Right.
And yeah, sometimes when they, bring things together, like, 3 different items that, like, oh, well, this is clearly the best of these 3 options. I just have doubts that those are the only options.
and that ties in with prior goals of having increased transparency
Yeah,
on the decision making. So it's like, it's more than just identifying, we do need to identify the types of data, but then it's utilizing it and being transparent about the decisions.
yeah, actually, like, collecting data is one thing, but making decisions that are based on it and informing of in what way that's valid, it would also be pretty helpful.
All right, that's good, Eric. Yeah,
Sorry, I never advanced the screen. Sorry, everybody. I forgot to advance the screen on that.
all right, page 36, goal 7. Identify and manage sustainable funding sources, partnerships, and efficiencies.
I had a question on number 7.1.
Mhm.
It talks about update the park dedication policy to ensure land is suitable for recreation or fee is adequate. Like, what's an example of a fee that we would be charging for a park dedication?
Yeah, this one's a bit vague.
It's when a development is going in, a developer wants to put a development in, right? They have to pay a
Yep, that's right.
park dedication fee. So
Oh.
usually they have to give us a portion of their land or pay a fee.
Okay.
So if you want a good example, that's Miller Park, which is south of the middle school.
Mhm.
You've got the apartment buildings in, and then you've got this just giant chunk of land in the middle and a tiny little playground in there. Nice open green space, small playground, but the dedication policy was that the developer, just as Leisha said, is required to put a certain percentage of land in based on land size. So most of the Valley Parks,
Valley
like
Oaks.
Valley Oaks,
Yeah, has a park. Yeah,
Okay.
not Valley has a park.
Perfect. Okay, that helps me. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I get a kick out of, and we were talking about this yesterday on 7.2, pursue all funding opportunities. To me, it's a little bit vague. You don't necessarily know if you're pursuing all of them unless you know what all of them are.
Well, and that's a thing that I question, like, pursuing all funding opportunities and exploring gift giving policy. And well, does that mean that if somebody wants to fund something that we would have to then do it? I mean, like, one of the things at Winona State that I think is kind of interesting is how big donors will want a specific thing and they'll get that even if it's not necessarily all that academically useful. So I mean, there should be some discretion in like what funding opportunities you pursue.
Would that tie back to the using the data to drive the decision making?
Well, hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
But if that's superseded by pursuing all funding activities, then
Right.
You want to say
Yeah.
something that says you pursue all funding opportunities that align with the stated goals and objectives of the plan? So that you narrow it, so that you don't,
yeah, that other guys align. Sure.
I think I'm also good with that.
You could also put in there to attempt to identify new funding opportunities as well, or previously unidentified funding opportunities.
And then goes back to the transparency. So the public should be able to look and see what funding opportunities were looked at. Because, Eric, you might have a different we missed one. But, you had something else to suggest and it was missed, so. Yeah, how do we communicate, like take a project, for example, how do we communicate the timeline of the project from start to finish, what those opportunities are? Eric, to your point of, there were 3 different ways, and why'd you choose that way? Like some of that decision-making process should be included in that transparency as well. To Eric Barnard, Eric 7.6, was this related to, you recall, were we talking about a sales tax here?
Yeah, yep, that was still something that we talk about too to this day, as far as yeah, like a 0.5-cent sales tax on food, beverage, and lodging, like a number of other communities have done. Duluth is one that's in Minnesota that's done that. There's been a number of them. There's one in Missouri that's done the same thing, 0.5-cent sales tax. They added a 0.5 cents to that to springboard it, and then that's sunsetted after like 5 years. But just, I mean, you just look at the communities that do that, especially, I've talked to some prominent business owners as well, and the idea of keeping things on food, beverage, and lodging is, doesn't hit locals as much, or local businesses. Like if you're a car dealership, that 0.5-cent sales tax, especially in a border town, could be enough to drive somebody across the river. But a 0.5 cent on your beverages or your food, and we already have a 3% or 3.5% tax on lodging that funds Visit Winona, right? So that just seems like having that consistent funding revenue for you all to have. Legacy grants and other grants are great to have. You can get funding in the CIP for programs as well. That's another way to get it, but a tax is something that's budgetable and something you can really plan for and project. I think the big thing is gathering the data, and I mean, it has to go to the state level, but it's been done. But I think we still think, a number of people think that's a really great idea to give a sustainable funding stream to and not just parks. I mean, we kind of some of us who've talked about it for a while called it more of a quality of life tax. So that it wouldn't, just go to parks or just to outdoor recreation. It could go to helping fund a skateboarding plaza, and like maybe more accessibility and maybe like a protected bike lane down Huff, those type of projects as well. So I think more of a quality of life, but you all have heard it from me a bunch, so I'll shut up.
I think that's great. I mean, it kind of mirrors the state. What do they call the state one that does all arts and recreation?
Legacy.
The legacy fund. I mean, it's just kind of a local version of the legacy fund. I think that is a real critical component to all of this, because otherwise, how do you plan going forward if you're always asking for money, I mean, to me, that's just a real fundamental piece that is needed.
Yeah. Anything else in goal 7 that's jumping out? Yeah. We do have one more goal left and 7 minutes. Here we go. Goal number 8. Ensure a quality series of programs that are available to all.
I just had a question about number 8.5. Allocate programming assistant funds into an operating budget, and what's that exactly referring to? I mean, I'm missing something there as to how that all fits into the overall.
It might be counting on you're bringing in funds that will be used to offset the costs, and then adding that into the operational budget as revenue.
Okay,
I'm
yeah, because
guessing.
the words programming assistance funds.
Yeah, I read that as a scholarship or some type of,
Do we get any assistance from like the county?
if we get money from the county.
Okay,
So it's probably kind of thing.
so is it like capturing those things that are to keep it from going into the general fund? It goes into the specifics of the park and rec funding.
Yeah, this one's a little vague for me.
I'm just grasping at it. It didn't make
Is it
sense.
like friendship center, like that kind of thing?
Yeah, well,
This,
yeah, that's how I see it on take it from the standpoint of budgeting for a specific program. If you can budget that you're gonna get $1,000 from the county to offset fees for residents, you could readjust how those
Okay,
fees are. It's already, I mean, that is something that we currently do.
sure. Okay, that makes
think-
sense. I'm just looking for,
Yeah, I think it's
it
a-
did make sense to me. So
I think it's a complicated way to say it.
I'm looking for basic literacy on my part here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, 8.5 is a little, it's. It could also be private donations. I think of the T-ball program, for example. There's a family that donates a certain amount of money for a specific purpose that gets put into the operating budget for this program. And then it offsets the costs, in this
Okay.
instance, to everything.
okay,
So it could be donated, like private donors, it could be.
we also get funding from the county for like scholarships too, right?
Yeah.
So we do a scholarship program so that people can use Lake Lodge and the aquatic center at a discounted rate and
Sure,
things like
sure.
that, so.
Yeah, it's that.
that makes sense then. Thanks.
You know, I would like to, after working on scholarships, both here and with my previous employer, did a lot of scholarship work and opportunities. I think there's room to improve on the system of how and the process of how people apply. So people are, to make sure that people are being treated respect, how it's you know,
More
private interaction,
confidential.
confidential interaction, you know, to make, we don't do this, but to make people stand in a certain line or, you know, waive the paper that I've got my, you know, my financial assistance. I just think we need to make sure we're staying ahead of the pace on how to
Not single
confidentiality
people
and
out.
singling people out and just make, because I know where I was at before, there are people that just would not apply because of a multitude of reasons, but yet they could have benefited from it, or their kids could have benefited, but one of the reasons they wouldn't apply is they didn't like that process. They didn't want to,
Yeah,
Or there's,
so like an
or the stigma.
there was the stigma.
I mean,
yeah.
I think of schools and free and reduced
Yeah.
lunch, you know, I mean, schools are always fighting that battle. We need you to apply, and people don't want to apply because they don't want the stigma,
Yeah.
you know. And
So in 8.1, you'd like to add like improve our procedures.
Or just regularly assess it, improve definitely.
Yeah.
And assess and constantly look for better ways to be more caring, understanding.
sensitive to need.
Sensitive, yes, that's it.
Yeah, there's a lot of a lot of online forms that are terrible.
Yeah.
I've already talked about terrible online forms here, so just say that. Easy, accessible online applications are the way, and if people have to dig too hard, they don't do it.
No.
If it's physically painful to get through the process, they don't do it. If it's embarrassing, they don't do it.
Yes.
Removing those barriers.
What else? At goal 8 is anything jumping out at anybody?
Well, so establishing a review for all programming. Should there be a review process for cessation of certain programming as well? Like, I don't know, you have to evaluate it to begin X, Y, or Z program, but if, like, what about stuff that you want to get rid of? Does that just like drop off the face of the earth and nobody knows or cares? Or should there be a specific process for reviewing, ceasing some sort of programming? Because if there's only a gate on the way in and not a gate on the way out, it's tough to manage.
Yeah.
Or well, there's a lot of opportunity to be selective, even though you are selective.
So utilizing the data that's collected, you know, how do you get out of certain programs? An assessment strategy.
Yeah, like criteria for maintaining or for not maintaining.
Mhm.
Not just, creation of new programming.
Mhm. Yeah.
Or if you want to kill a program because you think no one's using it, we need to be able to like look at it and do a real evaluation and justify killing it.
Or even transitions, like we were talking about tennis courts versus pickleball courts.
Sure.
That would be best to have criteria or something other than, women, to back it up.
Right.
Dave down the block is all about pickleball. We should have just pickleball.
Yeah.
It seems to be the thing.
Let's just climb all the stuff, right, Evie?
All right. Any more goal 8? We've got, looks like we're at 3 o'clock. Goal 8s, Jeff? No? Tricia, how are you with everything on here so far?
I'm good.
Good. Good. Zach? Good?
I'm
Eric,
good.
you're good? Thumbs up? Eric, right? Yep.
Yeah, is there anywhere in this that we can, make, city council actually listen? Does it take more than this?
After January.
Hopefully. I'll cross my fingers, but I'm not holding my breath.
This will be, the next steps with this is that, the city planners, are gonna go through and review everything, make comments. They're gonna go back out for public input on the whole plan again. It'll get another round of public input after that. They're hoping to get, that finalish draft, that Thanksgiving, the holidays, somewhere right in there. And then still more time for public input at that point. And then this will all get wrapped up, hopefully, sometime in the second quarter, where it'll go to planning commission and then to city council. So this will, all this information will get uploaded to the steering committees, and then I imagine we'll get some versions of it sent out to this committee and we can review it all. So up until council makes a decision on it, let's keep our eyes and ears open, and we'll keep adding to it. Any final thoughts? All right. Well, this might be it.
Yeah, I think so. We covered everything we needed to cover, so. Yeah, thanks again, everyone, for joining the subcommittee. I'm glad you all were able to make it today.
Nice to meet you folks.
Yeah.
Yep. Anything comes up, shoot us an email, we'll get it added, or you could reach out to the planners, Luke or Carlos directly, but we'd be happy to pass that through. So, all right, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And have a great rest of the day.
Take care.